The twin suns were rising over the farming colony of Greendale when Ryan slowly stepped out of his small shelter. The morning air was cool, and a faint wind carried the smell of burnt earth. The fields that stretched before him were once full of golden grain, green vines, and the quiet rhythm of life. Now they were dry, black, and silent. The fire had taken almost everything. A few birds circled above the smoking hills, searching for what remained of insects or seeds. Ryan's boots crunched against the ash as he walked toward the edge of his broken field. His left sleeve hung empty. Only his right arm remained, strong but scarred. He remembered the day the fire came. The sun had been red, the wind wild, and the ground had turned to flame faster than he could believe. Machines melted, the barn collapsed, and by the time he escaped, he had already lost his left arm. The doctors at the colony town saved his life, but they could not save his farm. For months, Ryan had lived alone, trying to rebuild. He fixed the fences with one arm, planted new crops that failed to grow, and slept under the sound of cracking wind. But there was one thing he could not repair: the silence. He had no one left. His parents had died years ago, and his few friends had moved to other colonies. Every morning he ate plain food, checked the sky, and wondered how long he could keep fighting. One evening, when the suns were setting and the horizon burned orange, he sat in front of the old console in his hut. The screen flickered with advertisements, trade offers, and colony messages. His tired eyes stopped on a message from the Central Council. It was titled, Cultural Exchange Marriage Program. It said that the colony government had partnered with alien settlements on nearby worlds to help build friendship through peaceful unions. Lonely settlers, workers, and farmers could apply to be matched with partners from other species who wished to learn human life. It sounded strange, almost unreal, yet the message promised comfort, understanding, and shared purpose. Ryan looked at his one arm and laughed softly. They would never match me, he said to himself. Who would want a burned-out farmer with half a body and dead land? But the message stayed in his mind. That night, when the wind howled outside, he opened the console again. He filled out the form with slow fingers, writing simple truths. Name: Ryan Thorne. Occupation: farmer skills. Soil work, machine repair, construction home, Greendale Colony. Reason for joining: companionship, rebuilding farm. He didn't write about the fire. He didn't write about the pain. When the form asked what kind of partner he wished to meet, he wrote, someone kind. Then he sent it and forgot about it. Days turned into weeks. Life continued in the same quiet pattern. He worked the fields that no longer grew, fixed what little equipment he had, and spoke to no one. At night, he watched the stars and wondered if any of them looked back. Then one morning, a small drone landed beside his door. A metal voice said, application approved. Arrival scheduled in 3 days. Ryan blinked in surprise. He reread the message 3 times before he believed it. An alien partner was coming to live with him. For the next 3 days, he cleaned his hut, repaired the water tank, and set up an extra sleeping space. He was nervous and unsure. What if she didn't like the place? What if she feared him? He tried to imagine what she might look like, but he couldn't. He had never seen an alien up close before. When the 3rd day arrived, the colony's sky was clear. A transport ship descended gently, stirring up the dust. Ryan stood near his barn, trying to look calm. The ship's door opened with a hiss, and a tall figure stepped down the ramp. She was nothing like what he had imagined. Her skin had a soft blue tone, faintly silver under sunlight. Her eyes were large and calm, colored like green glass. Her hair fell smooth and pale across her shoulders. She wore simple clothes, light and soft, as if made from woven mist. She looked at him, then bowed slightly. I am Lyra, she said in a quiet voice. I have come as your partner in the exchange program. Ryan's mouth felt dry. I am Ryan, he said. Welcome to my home. It's not much. Lyra looked at the burned fields behind him. It was once beautiful, she said gently. It can be again. Her voice carried no judgment, only understanding. That surprised him. Most people in town pitied him or looked away, but Lyra met his gaze without fear. He led her through the small hut, showing the rooms, the kitchen, the tools. She listened with interest, asking small questions about his machines and crops. When she saw his empty sleeve, she didn't stare. She simply nodded as if it didn't change anything. As the suns lowered, Ryan cooked a simple meal. They sat outside near the old fire pit, sharing food in silence. The sky above turned violet, then deep blue. The first stars appeared, shining over the blackened land. Ryan finally said, "You don't have to stay long if you don't want to. The farm isn't what it used to be. I joined the program because I thought maybe it would help keep the place alive a little longer." Lyra looked at him, her eyes soft. "I came to learn human life," she said. "That means sharing both joy and loss. I will stay." Her words felt steady and true. Ryan didn't know how to answer. He only nodded, his throat tight. That night, as he lay on his bed, he listened to the faint sound of Lyra walking in the next room. Her steps were light, almost silent. For the first time in months, he didn't feel completely alone. Over the next few days, they began to build a quiet rhythm. Ryan worked the fields and Lyra joined him, learning how to use simple tools. She was quick to adapt, strong for her size, and seemed to enjoy the touch of soil. When she smiled, it was rare but bright. One morning, he found her studying the burned soil with careful eyes. She touched the dirt, rubbed it between her fingers, and frowned softly. "The land still breathes," she said. "It only sleeps." Ryan didn't understand, but he smiled anyway. "If it's sleeping, it's been a long nap." That made her laugh gently. It was a small sound, but it carried warmth. In the evenings, they shared stories. Lyra spoke about her home world, a planet full of silver trees and floating lights. She told him her people believed every seed carried memory and hope. Ryan listened quietly, imagining it all. Sometimes she would ask about Earth, and he would tell her about the rain, the mountains, and the oceans he had never seen. Days turned into weeks. The silence of the farm changed. There was still loneliness, but it was softer now, shared between two hearts instead of one. One afternoon, while repairing the water pump, Ryan slipped and almost fell. Lyra caught his shoulder quickly, steadying him. Her hand was warm, her grip firm. "You must not rush," she said. Ryan nodded, embarrassed. "Old habit. I used to work faster before." "Before the fire," Lyra looked at him seriously. "You still work faster than many with two arms. That means your spirit is not broken." Her words stayed with him. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about her voice, her calm eyes, and the way she looked at the burned field as if it still had a future. By the time the next sunrise came, Ryan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe the land could live again. Maybe he could too. He didn't know it yet, but the small alien woman standing beside him carried more than kindness. She carried the power to heal his world in ways he couldn't imagine. But for now, it was enough that she stayed. The farm, once silent and empty, had begun to breathe again. Morning came with a soft golden light spreading across the hills of Greendale. The twin suns rose together, touching the dry soil with gentle warmth. Ryan stood outside his small hut, stretching his back as the wind carried the scent of soil and faint life. Lyra was already awake, kneeling near the water tank. She was cleaning it carefully with both hands, humming a quiet tune in her language. The sound was peaceful and strange, but it made the air feel alive. Ryan watched her for a while before speaking. "You don't have to do all that. It's old and leaks from the side." Lyra looked up at him and smiled. "Then I will fix the leak. A home must hold water if it wishes to grow." Ryan didn't argue. He had learned quickly that Lyra spoke with simple words but deep meaning. When she talked about small things, she always spoke like it mattered to the heart of the world. It reminded him of how his mother used to talk about planting seasons long ago. They began to work together each day. Ryan showed her how to use the farming tools, how to turn the soil, and how to check the old machines. Lyra moved with patience, never rushing. She touched the earth as if greeting it like an old friend. Her hands were gentle, yet her strength surprised him. She could lift heavy water buckets with ease and work through the heat without complaint. One afternoon, they stood near the edge of the ruined field. The land was cracked and gray, the remains of the fire still clear in the ground. Ryan sighed and kicked at a clump of hard soil. "It's no use. Nothing grows here anymore." Even the machines stopped reading moisture under the surface. Lyra knelt down and placed her hand on the soil. She stayed still for a long time. Then she said softly, "The land remembers. You only need to remind it how to live." Ryan frowned, not understanding. "Remind it? How do you remind dirt?" She looked up, her green eyes calm. "With patience and care, with seeds that speak its old language." Ryan smiled weakly. "If only I had seeds like that." Lyra did not answer. She looked toward the small shed where she kept her few belongings. Something in her eyes hinted that she knew more than she said. That evening after dinner, they sat near the barn and watched the sun sink beyond the hills. The sky turned deep orange and small lights began to rise across the horizon. Lyra spoke about her homeworld again. She told him about the forests that glowed in the dark and rivers that sang like music. Her people had lived close to nature, never fighting it, always helping it breathe. Rian listened quietly. He liked her voice. It carried calm strength. When she stopped speaking, he said, "Your world sounds like paradise. Why would anyone leave it?" Lyra lowered her gaze. "Because it no longer exists. The stars we called home faded long ago. My people scattered. Some of us were sent to share what we carried with new worlds." Rian felt a sting in his chest. "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "Don't be sorry. It is the way of life. We lose, we learn, and we give again." Ryan stared at the burned soil. "Then maybe you came to the right place. This land already lost everything. Maybe it needs someone who knows how to teach it again." Lyra smiled softly. "Then let us begin tomorrow." When morning came, Lyra walked out carrying a small wooden box. Ryan had never seen it before. It looked old but carefully crafted, with silver patterns carved across its surface. She opened it and took out a small handful of golden dust. It shimmered faintly in the sunlight. "What is that?" Ryan asked. "Memory of growth," she said. "Seeds from my world." Ryan's eyes widened. "I thought your world was gone." Lyra nodded. "It is, but we saved pieces of it. Not for wealth or power, but for renewal. My ancestors stored them in safe orbits. I was chosen to carry one small piece when I came here." She knelt beside the burned soil and pressed her palm to the ground. "Your world has strong roots. It only needs help to wake up." Rian watched in silence as she spread the golden dust across the dry soil. It drifted gently, catching the light like tiny sparks. Then she covered it with a thin layer of dirt. She looked up and said, "Water this place tonight. Tomorrow it will breathe again." Ryan wanted to believe her, but his practical side doubted it. "You really think something will grow out of that?" "This soil is dead," Lyra smiled. "The word dead is not real to life. It only means waiting." That evening he did as she said. He carried buckets of water and poured them gently across the ground where she had planted the dust. When he was done, the stars had filled the sky. Lyra stood beside him, watching quietly. "Now we wait," she said. The next morning, when Ryan stepped outside, his eyes went wide. The soil where Lyra had planted the golden dust had changed color. It was no longer gray. It was dark and moist, alive with faint green sprouts pushing through. Dozens of tiny shoots stretched toward the suns, glowing softly under the light. He dropped the metal bucket in his hand and called out, "Lyra, come see this!" She came running, her face calm but eyes shining. "It listened," she said softly. The soil remembered. Ryan knelt and touched the new plants. They felt warm, almost like soft silk. The roots had already reached deep. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. "This is impossible. Nothing has grown here since the fire." Lyra shook her head. "Nothing is impossible to life that wishes to return." Ryan stood up, staring at the small patch of green. "You did this?" She looked at him gently. "We did this. You cared enough to try. I only gave the soil something to hold on to." The next few days were filled with work. Ryan watered the new plants, checked the soil, and studied how fast they grew. Each sunrise brought more green. The field that once looked dead now shimmered with life. The plants grew taller, spreading across the burned land like a slow wave. When Ryan looked at Lyra, he saw something new. She wasn't just his partner from a government program. She was a mystery, carrying hope he didn't understand. He wanted to ask more about the seeds, but he also felt it wasn't time. She seemed to treat them with sacred respect. One evening they stood watching the field together. The air smelled fresh and the faint sound of leaves rustling filled the silence. Ryan said quietly, "You could sell these seeds. People would pay anything for them." Lyra shook her head. "They are not for selling. They are gifts from a dying world meant to heal the living ones. If they fall into wrong hands, life becomes a tool, not a gift." Ryan understood her meaning. He looked at his hand, rough and scarred, and said, "I don't have much left, but whatever grows here will be safe. I promise you that." Lyra turned toward him and nodded. "That is all I ask." After that night, Ryan began to see her differently. She was not fragile or strange anymore. She was strong in quiet ways. She spoke less than most, but her silence carried peace. The town people soon noticed changes. A few neighbors rode by and saw the sudden green fields. They asked questions, curious and suspicious. Ryan only said he found better seeds. He didn't tell them about Lyra's golden dust. As days passed, the two of them worked side by side from sunrise to dusk. They repaired the old barn together. Ryan showed her how to use welding tools, and she learned fast. When he struggled to carry large beams with one arm, Lyra stepped in without a word and lifted them easily. Sometimes they shared laughter over small mistakes. Sometimes they simply worked in silence, but every moment felt fuller than before. The burned-down farm that once looked like a graveyard was slowly turning into a place of life again. At night, when the air cooled and the stars spread wide, Ryan often sat outside, thinking about the change. He didn't know what future waited for him or for the strange alien woman who now shared his life. But he knew one thing. The silence that used to fill his heart was gone. In its place grew something new and quiet, like the sprouts pushing through the soil. The farm was no longer dead. It was becoming a home again. The days passed quietly after the golden seeds were planted. The once dead land now shimmered with new life. Green vines twisted through the soil. Leaves stretched tall toward the twin suns, and the air smelled of fresh rain even when no clouds covered the sky. Every morning, Ryan walked through the fields and felt something in his chest lift a little higher. The silence that once haunted the farm was gone. Lyra was always there beside him. She studied the plants closely, touching their leaves with care. Her eyes glowed faintly under sunlight like emerald glass. When Ryan asked about the crops, she always smiled and said, "They grow because they remember." Ryan didn't fully understand, but he didn't need to. All that mattered was that the soil was alive again. He spent long hours fixing irrigation lines, cleaning tools, and restoring the barn. For the first time since the fire, the land looked like a farm again. At night, they ate simple meals together. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. Their silence was no longer heavy. It was peaceful, like two old souls who understood each other without words. One morning, as Ryan inspected the crops, he noticed something strange. The plants weren't like normal crops. Their leaves shimmered faintly, and the roots seemed to spread faster than any seed he had ever seen. They grew in perfect patterns, forming circular shapes across the field. He called out, "Lyra, come here a moment." She came walking softly through the green rows. Her steps made no sound. Ryan pointed toward the growing circles. "What kind of plants are these?" "They don't look like anything from this world." Lyra knelt and touched the leaves gently. "They are not from this world," she said. "They are from mine." Ryan frowned. "Then what are they exactly? Food, medicine?" Lyra paused before answering. "They are life binders. They feed the soil and clean the air. They draw energy from the suns and share it with the ground. In time, the whole area will recover. Trees will grow again, rain will return. The fire will be forgotten." Ryan felt silent for a moment. He looked over the field, glowing under the twin suns. "You mean these plants can heal the planet?" Lyra nodded. "A small part of it, yes. My people created them long ago to restore dying lands. We used to trade them to other worlds, but when our empire fell, many were lost. Only a few of us were trusted to carry what remained." Her voice grew quiet. "I was one of them." Ryan looked at her with new respect. "So you didn't just come here for the marriage program. You came to save this world." She met his gaze. "I came to live among humans, to learn their hearts. But I saw your world and your courage. You lost much, yet you still stand. I thought perhaps this land and its keeper deserved another chance." Ryan felt warmth rise in his chest. "You should have told me sooner." She smiled softly. "Would you have believed me?" He laughed gently. "Maybe not." Over the next weeks, the changes became more visible. Small streams began to flow again near the lower hills. Birds returned, singing as they built nests in the half-burned trees. Even the wind felt different, softer, cooler, full of promise. Ryan worked harder than ever. With only one arm, he still managed to repair the irrigation pumps, build fences, and replant new rows. Lyra often helped him without asking. She moved with quiet grace, lifting heavy tools and carrying water buckets as if they weighed nothing. In the evenings, they sat by the porch and watched the suns sink beyond the green horizon. The sky turned red and gold, painting their faces in light. Ryan said one night, "You know, when I first joined that program, I thought they'd made a mistake sending you here. I thought you'd hate this place." Lyra looked at the glowing fields. "I do not hate places that try to live again. I came to build something, not to escape." Ryan smiled faintly. "You've done more than build. You've changed everything." Lyra turned her head and looked at him quietly. So have you. The land responds to those who believe in it. You never stopped trying, even when you lost everything. That spirit is stronger than any seed. Rian felt a deep silence between them. It was not awkward, but full of unspoken understanding. The stars began to appear, shining softly above the farm. For the first time since the fire, Ryan felt at peace. But peace did not last long. Word about his new crops began to spread. Traders and local officials started visiting, curious about how a burned farm had turned green overnight. They asked questions, made offers, and tried to buy samples. Rian refused them all. He didn't want anyone touching the plants until he understood them fully. But the visitors kept coming. Some brought recording drones. Others came with officials from the colony council. One afternoon, 2 men from the council arrived in a silver vehicle. They wore clean uniforms and carried tablets. The older one said, "Ryan Thorne, reports show your farm has developed rapid soil recovery within a few weeks. This is highly unusual. We'd like to inspect your property for scientific purposes." Ryan crossed his arms. "You can look, but don't touch anything." The younger man smiled politely. "Of course. We only wish to understand how you achieved such results. Your land might hold valuable resources for the colony." Rian's stomach tightened. He didn't like the way the man said valuable resources. It reminded him of how big corporations had stripped other colonies bare. They walked through the fields, scanning with their tablets. The older man stopped and whispered to the younger one, "These readings are off the charts. The soil here could support endless harvests." When they finished, they turned to Ryan. "We'll send a request for deeper testing. You'll need to hand over a few plants for lab study. It's colony policy." Ryan's jaw tightened. "No, these plants stay here. They belong to this land." The older man frowned. "You don't own the genetic rights of alien crops. If these are foreign species, they fall under council regulation. If you refuse, we can seize them for safety analysis." Rian's heart pounded. He didn't know what to say. He looked at Lyra, who had been watching from the porch. She stepped forward, her calm eyes steady. "The plants are safe," she said. "They are not for trade or research. They are gifts from my people meant only for healing. You will not take them." The men stared at her. One whispered, "An alien settler? She's part of this?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, and I am under the Cultural Exchange Protection Act. You cannot remove my property without permission." The younger man scowled but said nothing. The older one sighed. "We will report this to the council. Expect an investigation." When they left, Ryan exhaled slowly. "They'll come back," he said. Lyra nodded. "Yes, humans are curious, and curiosity often leads to greed. We must be ready." That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He sat outside, looking over the glowing fields. He thought about everything Lyra had done for him, about the seeds that healed his land, and about the people who now wanted to take them. Lyra joined him quietly. She carried a small silver bracelet in her hand. "This holds what remains of my people's records," she said. "Proof of ownership, trade rights, and our final contracts before our empire fell. If they come again, this will protect you." Ryan looked at the bracelet. "Why give this to me?" "Because you care for the land as we once did. My people trusted me to find someone worthy of our legacy. I think I have found that person." He looked at her, unable to speak. The stars reflected in her eyes like rivers of light. When dawn came, Ryan walked through the fields again. He touched the plants gently, feeling their warmth. The leaves seemed to pulse softly with life. He knew then that these seeds were more than crops. They were a promise, a bridge between 2 worlds that had both suffered loss. He turned and saw Lyra standing near the barn, the wind moving through her pale hair. She looked peaceful but alert, as if she already sensed the storm that was coming. The colony council would not give up easily. Ryan knew that. But he also knew one thing for certain. He would not let anyone take what she had given him. The land had finally learned to live again, and he would fight for it with everything he had. As the suns rose higher, the green fields shimmered across the valley. Somewhere deep beneath the soil, the roots of Lyra's world had taken hold, whispering life back into the heart of a human farm. The calm days did not last. News of Ryan's growing fields spread across the colony like wind through dry grass. Traders, officials, and curious travelers came almost every day. Some came with admiration, some with questions, but many came with greed hidden behind polite smiles. They had never seen soil heal so fast. They had never seen plants that glowed faintly under the suns. To them, it was not a miracle. It was a resource waiting to be owned. Rian tried to keep everyone away, but people always found a reason to visit. They wanted samples, soil, or a few seeds. He refused every offer, no matter how high the price. Lyra stayed calm through it all. She spoke little, but her eyes followed every visitor. She seemed to sense which ones carried good hearts and which ones carried hunger. One afternoon she said quietly, "The scent of greed is stronger each day. They will not stop with offers. They will take if we do not protect." Ryan nodded. "I know, but what can we do? I can't fight the council. They have rules and papers for everything." Lyra looked at the horizon, where silver colony towers rose far away. "Then we will use their own laws to guard what is ours." That night she opened the silver bracelet she had once shown him. Inside the smooth band, faint blue symbols glowed. Ryan watched as she traced her finger over the light. "This holds ancient contracts," she said softly. "Trade agreements that gave my people rights over the worlds we once helped. Some of those rights were never removed. One of them covers this colony region." Ryan blinked in surprise. "You mean this land?" Lyra nodded. "Yes. It was once marked as a shared ground between my people and early human settlers. The records were lost over time, but this bracelet carries the key to unlock them. The council follows data more than truth. We will give them data they cannot deny." The next morning she asked Ryan to go with her to the colony's registration office. He hesitated but finally agreed. They rode there on a borrowed transport. The office stood in the center of Greendale town, a tall glass building surrounded by machines and busy people. Inside, a clerk greeted them with polite boredom. "How can I help you?" Ryan said calmly. "We're here to register ownership rights for my land under existing trade agreements." The clerk raised an eyebrow. "That's unusual. What kind of agreement?" Lyra stepped forward and placed the silver bracelet on the counter. "This is an official trade key from the Valoran Merchant Archives. It carries treaty rights for land usage within this colony. It names the bearer and their bonded partner as rightful caretakers." The clerk frowned but took the bracelet to a scanner. The blue light flashed, then changed to green. The machine beeped and displayed a long series of alien and human symbols. The clerk leaned closer, reading in disbelief. This matches old council records from the first colonization phase. These are original Valoran codes." "They're authentic," Ryan asked. "So what does that mean?" "It means," the clerk said slowly, "that your land cannot be claimed, taxed, or seized by the colony. It's protected under historical trade law. You and your registered partner are now recognized as joint owners and guardians." Lyra smiled softly. "Then our home is safe." The clerk printed the documents and handed them over with shaking hands. "Congratulations," he said. "You've just revived a law that hasn't been used in over a century." On the way back home, Ryan looked at Lyra. "You knew this would work." She smiled faintly. "My people were good at trading. We never made deals without safeguards." When they returned, Rian placed the new ownership documents on the table. He felt a weight lift from his heart. For the first time, the farm was safe by law. The council could not touch it, but peace rarely stays when wealth is involved. Within days, the council sent representatives again. This time, they came not as curious officials, but as inspectors with authority badges. They brought drones, cameras, and more people. Rian met them at the gate. The lead inspector, a woman in a dark suit, looked around with sharp eyes. "Mr. Thorne, we are here on behalf of the colony's research department. We've received reports that your land contains unknown biological material. We require full access for safety verification." Ryan showed her the document. "You have no right to enter. This land is protected under the Valoran trade law." The inspector took the papers and read them carefully. Her expression changed slightly. "Where did you get this?" Lyra stepped forward, calm and composed. "From the archives of my people. The data is registered in your system. Your clerk verified it yesterday." The inspector looked uneasy. She returned the paper. "We will need to confirm this with the central office." "You may," Lyra said gently. "But until then, this land is closed to all colony business." The woman hesitated, then motioned for her team to retreat. "This is not the end of it," she warned. Rian watched them leave. His heart beat fast. "They're not giving up." Lyra looked at the field, her face calm. "Let them come. The truth protects itself." In the following weeks, the crops grew even more magnificent. The plants now reached shoulder height, their leaves shining green and silver. The ground felt soft and rich. Water ran smoothly through the irrigation channels. Birds built nests again. Life returned in ways Ryan had never seen before. Neighbors began visiting not for gossip but for help. They brought handfuls of their own soil, asking Lyra how to heal it. She showed them simple ways to care for the ground, teaching them to mix the ash with compost, to water at night, and to stop burning weeds. Ryan noticed how she always shared what could help others but never spoke of the golden seeds. That secret stayed between them. One evening, while they were sitting on the porch, Lyra turned to him. "You have changed," she said. Ryan smiled slightly. "Maybe I've just remembered how to live." "You look at the land with pride again," she said. "You walk straighter. You smile more. This is what healing means. Not just for soil, but for hearts." Ryan looked at her quietly. "You've done more for me than anyone ever has." "You saved this place," Lyra shook her head. "You saved it. I only gave you the tools. You gave it meaning." The air was calm. The suns dipped low, painting the fields gold. For a long moment they sat in silence, listening to the soft rustle of leaves. But their peace was broken once again. The next morning, a transport from the Central Colony office arrived. 3 large men stepped out, followed by the same inspector from before. She looked tense. "The Central Council has confirmed your legal claim," she said to Lyra. "However, they also confirmed that your property value now exceeds standard private ownership limits. They request an official trade exchange to balance the rights." Ryan frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," the woman said carefully, "that the council will offer you compensation if you transfer part of your land to them for research. If you refuse, we'll have to escalate to higher courts." Lyra looked at Ryan, then back at the inspector. "We refuse," she said calmly. The woman sighed. "Then you leave us no choice but to open a legal dispute. You will receive a court notice soon." As they drove away, Ryan looked at Lyra in concern. "They won't stop until they get what they want." Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the sunset. "Then it is time they learn that wealth is not theirs to command." That night she opened a hidden compartment in her wooden box. Inside were small transparent crystals that glowed with soft light. Ryan stared at them, unsure what they were. Lyra held one up between her fingers. "These are memory stones," she said. "They hold knowledge, maps, and trade routes of my people. They also hold the location of hidden vaults that contain vast resources from our old world. Gold medals, seeds, and knowledge beyond your colonies." Ryan looked shocked. "You mean you're wealthy?" Lyra nodded slowly. "My people trusted me to guard this wealth until I found a place worthy of it. Now that place is here. If they want to measure value, then let them know the truth. I will release the records to the colony network. Once they see how much I hold, they will not dare to challenge." The next day, she connected her memory stones to the colony data grid. Within hours, the news spread across the network. The council learned that Lyra of the Velaran race held ownership of trade vaults containing enough resources to fund 10 colonies. The same name appeared beside Ryan Thorne as her legal bonded partner. The council backed down almost immediately. No one wanted to challenge the richest woman in the region. Ryan could hardly believe it. He looked at Lyra that evening as they stood in the middle of the glowing fields. "You really saved us." "You saved everything." Lyra looked at the horizon, her voice soft. "We saved each other. You gave me a reason to share what I had kept hidden. Now your world and mine can live together." As the sun set over the golden farm, the wind carried the smell of new life. The land that had once burned was alive again, protected not by weapons or power, but by trust and kindness between 2 hearts that refused to give up. The suns rose over Greendale like 2 bright eyes watching a new world. The once burned fields now stretched wide and green, shining with tall crops and strong trees. Birds filled the sky again, their songs mixing with the soft hum of wind through leaves. The land that had once been silent now breathed with life. Ryan stood at the edge of his porch, looking over the valley that was once nothing but ash. He could hardly believe what he saw. Every step he had taken, every drop of sweat he had poured into the soil had led to this moment. His right hand rested on the wooden post beside him, the sleeve of his left side still empty, but his heart no longer felt incomplete. Behind him, Lyra stepped out, her eyes calm and shining in the morning light. She carried a small bowl filled with glowing seeds. "These are the last of my gift," she said softly. "We will plant them at the border of the farm. They will protect the land from drying again." Ryan smiled. "Do you think we still need protection?" "The council has stopped bothering us," Lyra nodded gently. Protection is not only from people, it is also from forgetting. The land remembers care. We must remind it always. They walked together to the far edge of the farm where the ground met the open hills. The air was fresh and small insects buzzed over flowers that had never grown there before. Lyra knelt and pressed her hand to the ground. The soil opened like it was welcoming her touch. She placed the seeds inside, covering them slowly. Rian watched her movements, graceful and patient. Every action she made seemed full of purpose. "You never stop teaching me," he said. "Every day I learn something new just by watching you." Lyra smiled slightly. "And I learn from you. Humans are strong in ways my people never were. You rise again and again, even when there is nothing left. That strength is what I admire most." Ryan looked across the field, where new workers from nearby farms were helping plant more crops. After Lyra's wealth became known, many people from the colony changed their attitude. The same officials who once came with threats now came offering help and cooperation. Ryan and Lyra used that chance to invite workers, both human and alien, to learn the new methods of planting and soil care. The farm became more than a home. It became a place of learning, a symbol of renewal. People called it the Green Star of Greendale. Reporters came from distant colonies to write about it. They asked about the seeds, about the healing soil, and about the strange partnership between a human farmer and an alien woman. Ryan never told them everything. He always said the same simple words: "The land heals when we work with it, not against it." Lyra often stayed silent during interviews. She preferred to let the earth speak through its growth. She walked among the crops, touching the leaves, whispering soft words that only the plants seemed to understand. One day, a young reporter asked her, "Do you plan to sell your seeds to other worlds?" Lyra shook her head gently. "Life is not a trade. It is a trust. When the right people come, we will share freely." That answer spread across the colony networks, and many began to respect her even more. She became known as the voice of renewal, while Ryan became the keeper of Greendale. Yet neither of them cared about titles. They only cared about the farm and the life it brought. Weeks passed into months. The seasons on Greendale were longer than Earth's, and every harvest brought something new. The plants that grew from Lyra's seeds produced grain that was rich in nutrients and easy to store. It fed hundreds of families. The soil grew so fertile that even weeds turned into useful herbs. Ryan built new storage houses with the help of local workers. He designed them carefully, making sure every part could be handled with one arm. His strength had returned not in muscle alone but in spirit. Sometimes when he walked among the fields, the workers greeted him with respect, calling him Master Ryan. He always laughed and said, "Just call me farmer. That's enough." Lyra watched him often from the shade of the large tree they had planted together near the farmhouse. It was the first tree that grew from her golden seed. Its leaves shimmered silver under sunlight. When she looked at it, she saw both of their worlds joined together. One evening after the day's work, they sat under that tree. The air was warm and full of the scent of grain and flowers. Fireflies floated over the fields, glowing softly like drifting stars. Ryan said quietly, "Sometimes I still think this is a dream. I wake up expecting to see the ash again, but it's gone. Everything is alive." Lyra looked at him. "It is alive because you believed it could be. Dreams only stay dreams until someone works for them." Ryan smiled. "You always make everything sound so simple." "Because truth is simple," she said. "We only make it hard when we forget to listen." He looked at her then, really looked. The soft blue of her skin reflected the faint light, and her green eyes held peace. "When you first came here," he said, "I thought I was helping you start a new life. I never knew you'd be the one to give me mine back." Lyra turned her gaze toward the fields. "You gave me a home," she said softly. "My people lost ours long ago. I thought I would never feel belonging again. But now, when I walk on this soil, I feel the heart of my world beating here too." Ryan felt something stir inside him, not of sadness or joy alone, but of gratitude. He reached out with his right hand and placed it gently over hers. For a moment, they sat in silence, the world around them breathing in harmony. In the following months, Ryan and Lyra opened the first green learning station at the edge of their land. It welcomed both human and alien visitors. They came to study soil healing, water control, and shared farming. Lyra taught them ancient methods from her people, while Ryan taught them human tools and machinery. Together, they created a bridge between two species through the common ground of life itself. Children from the town often came to visit. They ran through the fields, laughing and chasing insects. Lyra would kneel down and show them how to plant small seeds. She always said, "When you plant something, you promise to care for it. Never forget that." The children loved her gentle nature and called her Teacher Lyra. Ryan watched her with quiet pride. Every time he saw her smile, he felt warmth spread in his chest. He often thought that maybe the universe had burned his farm for a reason, to clear the ground for something greater to grow. As the years moved forward, the colony changed. Other farms began to use Lyra's methods. The soil across Greendale became rich and green. Rain returned to the dry areas. The Colony Council, once greedy and blind, now supported the Green Program officially, naming Ryan and Lyra as its founders. But for Ryan, the greatest reward was still simple. It was waking up each morning to see the sun rise over healthy land, to hear the sound of life returning, and to know that he was not alone anymore. One morning, he stood near the old barn, now fully rebuilt with clean walls and new machinery. Lyra approached carrying a small wooden box. She opened it and showed him a handful of normal earth seeds. "These are yours," she said. "They do not glow or shine, but they carry human strength. Will you plant them beside mine?" Ryan took the seeds carefully. "We'll plant them together." They worked side by side, digging small holes, placing the seeds and covering them gently. When they finished, they stood together, watching the field stretch before them, half filled with glowing alien crops and half with simple human grain. "This is how it should be," Lyra said. "Two worlds, one purpose," Ryan nodded. "And one promise. We take care of the land and it takes care of us." The wind swept softly across the valley, carrying the scent of both human and alien plants mixing in the air. The sun shone high above, their light warm and golden. That evening, as the stars began to appear, Ryan and Lyra stood by the porch again. The lights from nearby farms glowed faintly in the distance. The whole valley looked like a sea of stars resting on Earth. Lyra said quietly, "Do you see it, Ryan? The world you rebuilt. The home we made," he nodded. "I see it. And I'll never forget how it began. With one seed, one promise, and one stranger who believed when I didn't." Lyra smiled. "We are never strangers when we share hope." They stood together as the night settled around them. The farm glowed softly under the twin moons, a symbol of what patience and kindness could create. The world had burned once, but now it lived again. And at its heart stood a one-armed human and an alien woman who had turned loss into life. Their story became legend on Greendale, not as a tale of power, but as a reminder that true strength grows from care, and true wealth is not what we keep, but what we give back to the world. The wind passed gently over the fields, carrying their names softly through the night. Ryan and Lyra, keepers of the living soil, builders of hope, and guardians of a world reborn,